When the Right to Read report came out in 2022, many schools in Ontario reviewed and changed their reading programs. LD at School visited All Saints Catholic Elementary School in Toronto to learn more about how they have changed their supports for struggling readers.
We noticed that there were a number of junior students struggling with their reading. And when the Right to Read report came out, we said, let's talk to our kindergarten teachers, let's talk to our primary teachers, and let's really figure out a flow that we can work on together.
Julie presented me with a document and said, hey, would you like a challenge? And she said, well, read this report and tell me what we need to know. I found that there was some pretty scathing assessments of what our reading program is now, and just looked at changes that the Human Rights Tribunal thought that we needed to make. So we sort of looked at that and said, okay, we know there's probably going to be changes down the road, but what can we do now?
Before making any changes, the school needed to understand exactly why their students were struggling with reading.
When we did the Dibbles assessments with the senior kindergartens, because that's where we started, there were some children who, after being exposed for 2 years in the same kindergarten classes as someone else, could identify in 1 minute 5 letters. And when you're seeing that, do we wait? Do we hope that they're gonna get it later, or do we intervene?
We realized that, yes, supports were there, but the strategies perhaps were not targeted for the students in the areas that they needed. So for instance, we thought it was decoding, but really it was phonological awareness. And we realized that a lot of our students did not know their sounds, and that wasn't getting picked up.
Once they knew what they needed to focus on, they researched the science of reading to help inform a new reading program for their students.
We had very in-depth conversations about different things being able to get these children reading and when they're falling behind and what we can do about it.
We wanted to try to deal with this issue of the children who are having trouble identifying the sounds. Because it seems to make sense that if you can't hear the sounds, how are you going to reproduce them later? I got on the phone with a friend of mine who I knew was really interested in the science of reading, and we talked to her. And I mean, one of the key things she said to us is, look, reading's hard, and you're not going to go and turn all your teachers into expert reading instructors overnight. She said, you have to look for a program that's already taken all the science into account, all of the research that we have on reading, and start from there. And then people will learn as they're doing those programs, and then we can build from there as a school.
The school decided to start by adapting an existing volunteer program for struggling readers.
When I volunteer, they give me a list of students, and I pull out a student from the classroom, and we go on to a one-on-one session. We usually focus on one letter, and whether that letter be A or T, whatever the letter is, we focus on knowing the letter and knowing the sound of the letter.
What letter is this one? T, right?
So we repeat a lot, and we're tracing the letter with our finger, the pointing finger, and we're saying also the sound and what letter it is.
We learn some letters. We sound out the words.
We also do some blending activities as well. And then at the end of our one-on-one session, usually 20 minutes, 25 minutes with each student, we're doing a game. And that game consists of a whole bunch of letters and sounds. So if they know the sound of the letter, they say the sound. If they don't know the sound of the letter yet, because we haven't worked on that sound, they say the letter.
When I come back from doing this, when we have homework, I feel a little bit more confident.
The school also understands that communicating and engaging with parents is another critical part of a student's reading success.
So with regards to the reading program, ensuring that they're aware of the strategies that we're doing in school, for them to understand our overall goals, that's very important for any success. And then they can make connections at home with their children. We'll send them resources that they can do. We include things in the newsletter where try this at home. this is what we're seeing. We're very honest with the parents.
All those kids that have been flagged that are lower than where they're supposed to be, I right away send home the sound wall I have on a piece of paper, as well as the sound buddies I also put on a piece of paper and explain it to them. So then this is what they're going to be doing and focusing on every night with their child.
If a child is struggling in, usually in about senior kindergarten, grade 1, we invite the parents just simply to have a conversation. We make sure that they always leave with the meeting knowing what we're doing and what we would like them to do. It's got to be a partnership. It's so important that when we leave that meeting, everyone in that room is aware of what each other's doing and their responsibility as a takeaway.
The most important thing is make sure you are practicing with your child and make it fun. So many people try to make it mundane, and if you don't make it fun, especially after the child's been sitting in the classroom all day long, they're not going to want to do it.
It is still early days for the program, so the school is ensuring that they are reviewing and assessing its effectiveness as the year progresses.
Right now, what we've developed, we're starting out with children who we've identified as having reading difficulties, and they're in grades 1 and 2. And we're trying to see what works, and what works for who or whom. We're just trying to figure out which amount of intervention is going to be appropriate, because we don't know yet. But it's going to take us looking at the different interventions and the different amount of times to see what did actually work. So we're going to be taking a little bit of a leap, but then as we do this longer, we'll start to see the patterns develop on what worked and for who.
So many people want to be able to help in the school. They're able to sit there with the children and they know how to read, but then they struggle with being able to teach a child how to read. So we ended up just being able to develop it so that the average person would be able to come, read exactly what it is that we put for them, and then be able to teach the child.
We don't know if our program is going to exactly work. And if it doesn't work, what's next? There are a lot of programs out there. And I think you have to look at that child and what's working or what's not working. And if it's not working, what do you do next?
All Saints Catholic Elementary School recognizes that a successful reading program empowers the staff, volunteers, parents, and the students, and will help underpin a lifelong love of reading.
I see a lot of good happening with our reading programs. There's just an engagement. The students are getting that very tailored, strategic support that they need, and they're feeling successful, and they're not feeling overwhelmed in the classroom. And the adult, the volunteer reader, is just seeing the progress, and they're invested, and you can't beat that. We're working on the love of reading with them.
I think if I was hoping for anything that looked like success for us, it would be to be able to move away our special ed resources from kids who maybe didn't need to be in special ed in the junior grades because we addressed some of their learning needs when they were in kindergarten, when they were in grade 1, when they were in grade 2, and we help them there, because there's going to be another group who are going to continue to struggle. Even with these interventions, it may take more time. And when we can put our resources into that, help them all the way through those elementary grades, then maybe we really have an opportunity for everyone.
The greatest outcome is their confidence. They're building confidence. They're saying, I can do it. I'm gonna read, and they look forward to it. As opposed to my first session with them, they're like, oh, reading, really? Like, I don't wanna go. Like, they're a little bit hesitant. Now, since I've done many sessions with them, they look forward to it. They're like, I can do it, especially when we're doing the blending activities and they're sounding out like 3-letter words and they're able to read that word. They're like, oh, wow, I can read, I can do it. It's fulfilling to me to see that in them. And they're wanting to read more. They're asking, I'm gonna read this with my mom when I get home. So it's beautiful.
I can read a lot better.
It gives me goosebumps and definitely it makes teaching worth it.